Hi, I'm Amy. This is House of Nash Eats, and today we're making red velvet cake. All right, so when you're making homemade cake from scratch, it's really important to remember to pull out your ingredients ahead of time so that your butter has a chance to soften, your buttermilk has a chance to come to room temperature, and same with your eggs. It's going to help everything mix together better, and you'll get cakes that bake flat on top instead of rounded in the middle. So we're going to start out by mixing together our dry ingredients. So I've got cake flour, and this is 3 cups of cake flour. And I'll include a link below to the printable recipe so you can print it all out and follow along. And then I've got 3 tablespoons of regular unsweetened cocoa powder and baking soda and salt. And I'm just going to whisk all of those together to evenly disperse the cocoa powder and the baking soda. And then we'll set that to the side. Okay, now to our stand mixer, or you could use a handheld mixer to do this. We're going to add 2 cups of granulated sugar and half of a cup of salted butter, and this has been softened to room temperature. We're going to mix those together for 1 to 2 minutes until they're creamy and combined. Okay, once the butter and sugar are light, I'm going to go ahead and add 1 cup of vegetable oil. We're going to mix it again and scrape the bottom and the sides of the bowl to make sure everything gets evenly combined. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and add our vanilla extract and the eggs. And I'm going to add the eggs one at a time, mixing between each addition, just to make sure everything gets evenly combined and mixes together really well. And then we're going to add about half of our dry ingredients that we whisked together earlier. Okay, and start mixing on low speed just until it's combined. I forgot a really important ingredient. Okay, we need to talk about red food coloring because you don't want to forget that. All right, so normally you would do this when you're mixing in the eggs. You need to add your red food coloring. I just barely started adding my dry ingredients. It's fine, everything's fine. I'm gonna add my red food coloring now. And then we're going to mix it and it will really look like red velvet cake. I was like, why doesn't this look red? Okay, and also add a tablespoon of vinegar to your batter. Okay, now it's looking like a crime scene in here, which is what it should look like when you're making red velvet cake. All right, so we mixed in our dry ingredients, and now I'm going to add about half of the buttermilk. And the buttermilk reacts with the vinegar and the baking soda in this recipe to help create like that classic flavor that's a little bit tangy, buttery, cocoa-y red velvet cake. Okay, be careful when you pulse in that buttermilk because it's gonna wanna splash everywhere. Good enough, that's only a couple of seconds. So I'm gonna scrape down the sides of the bowl again right now before I add the rest of the dry ingredients and the rest of the buttermilk. We just wanna make sure that everything mixes together evenly so the cakes rise evenly. Here's the last of our flour and cocoa powder mixture, and then the last of our buttermilk. All right, so I'm doing 2 8-inch layers, so they're nice and thick layers. It's 6 cups of batter, so that's 3 cups of batter for each pan, or you could weigh it out. You could also do 3 8-inch layers and do 2 cups of batter per pan, and just decrease the baking time to about 30 minutes. For 8-inch layers, if you just do 2 of them, it's gonna be about 38 to 42 minutes for them to bake through. You could also use 9-inch pans, make cupcakes, do a bundt cake. This batter is going to work with any of it, and there are instructions in the post for all the different baking times for any of those cake pans. So I'm going to spray my cake pans with some baking spray, and so I like to line my cake pans with circles of parchment paper. This just makes sure that the cake layers come out really easily when the cake is done. So I line it first, and then I'm going to spray the edges with the baking spray. And I love baking spray because it actually has flour in it, unlike cooking spray, and so it just helps so things don't stick. Okay, and I'm gonna be a total rebel, and I'm not even going to measure these. I'm just gonna eyeball it. So I'm going to divide my batter pretty much evenly between both cake pans. And then we're going to bake both layers at the same time in our oven. It looks kind of like ketchup. You can use less red food coloring if you want to. I use 1 tablespoon of red gel food coloring, which gives the most concentrated flavor without needing quite as much as if you're using a liquid food coloring. Okay, now we're going to pop both cake layers in a 350-degree oven and bake them for 38 to 43 minutes, just until a toothpick inserted in the center comes out clean. All right, so let's make our cream cheese frosting for our red velvet cake. So in my bowl, I've got 2 8-ounce bricks of cream cheese that have been softened to room temperature for like an hour. And I'm going to add 1/2 cup of softened butter. And then we're going to mix those for like 1 to 2 minutes, just until they're all smooth. Now, if they haven't had a chance to soften, you might have trouble getting the lumps out. So it really does help to give them some time to sit out of the fridge for a little bit, just so they mix together more smoothly. And you can do this in a stand mixer, but I'm just using my handheld right now. Okay, once you've got your cream cheese and your butter mixed together, then we're going to go ahead and add, ooh, that's gonna fall over. I'm gonna sit it right there. Then we've got 4 cups of powdered sugar. I'm going to go ahead and add all of it right now. Whoops. Along with my vanilla extract. And we'll mix those together. So start on low speed so that you don't have powdered sugar going everywhere, and if it's on your fingers, it'll go everywhere anyway. And it's on my shirt, goes everywhere. Okay, and you don't want to overmix your cream cheese frosting, because the more you mix it, the softer it will get. So just mix until the powdered sugar is combined, and then scrape down the sides of the bowl and add a little bit of heavy cream, just as much as you need to get a spreadable, soft consistency for your cream cheese frosting. So I'm just scraping the bowl, making sure all of the powdered sugar on the side gets mixed in, and going down to the bottom so that any butter or cream cheese that's stuck on the bottom also gets evenly mixed into the frosting. Okay, and I'm gonna add just a little bit of cream. I'm gonna start with 1, maybe 2 tablespoons and see how that is. Okay, that looks beautiful. You can see there are nice ribbons in frosting. It's holding its shape, but it's still really nice and soft. Cream cheese frosting is softer than most buttercream frostings, or like an American buttercream, but it's still like nice and silky and smooth, and it's got that wonderful like tangy flavor from the cream cheese that really helps offset the sweetness of the red velvet cake, which is why it pairs so well together. So I've got my cake layers out of the oven, they've cooled completely, and now I want to level off this cake. It's actually, you can probably see it's pretty flat already. I used room temperature ingredients, which helped it not to dome very much, but there's kind of a little edge because I did nice thick layers, and so it's got a little bit of a lip. I just want to level it off so I have a really easy time frosting this. So I've got this cake leveler tool. These are super handy, or you could use a really long serrated knife and go around the edges. But all you do is you get it to the level that you want. We're just going to pull this through, sawing back and forth to cut off that top level. And this is just going to make sure that the cake is nice and even when we're frosting it. And then you just peel that off. And then this is just extra treat, which is delicious to eat, but we're also gonna crumble that up and use it as some of our decoration for the red velvet cake. Okay, so I've got my cake stand. I'm going to take my bottom cake layer. I'm gonna put it bottom side down. Then I've got my cream cheese frosting, and I'm just going to dollop a good amount of the frosting onto that cake layer and use a spatula to spread this out into a nice even layer. I usually do about 3/4 of a cup to 1 full cup of frosting between each layer. And you can just get down and kind of eyeball it to make sure that it's level all the way around so your cake is stable and you're not putting unbalanced layers on it, which could cause the cake to fall or slide or break apart. Okay, and so I've got my second cake layer, and I'm going to do the bottom side up on this one, and this one has also been leveled. We're just going to place that right in the center Just kind of make sure that everything's even. Okay, and then I'm going to put more of the cream cheese frosting right on top, and then I'll spread it around the sides. Okay, so I'm doing just a 2-layer cake today. You could definitely turn this into a 4-layer cake by doing 2 8-inch cake layers, which is what I did here, and then cutting them in half using the cake leveler, and that would give you 4 layers. And you could also do 3 layers just by doing thinner layers. With red velvet, I just love the look of a classic 2-layer cake with thick layers of like sponge in the middle. I feel so Great British Baking Show when I say sponge. It just means cake layer, right? Pretty sure. And I'm just doing a rustic look, just smoothing the frosting around the edges. I just pull it off of the top and let it fall over the edge and use my spatula or knife or whatever tool you have to kind of spread it evenly around the cake. With cream cheese frosting, because it's not as firm as a buttercream and doesn't crust the same, I don't really worry about a crumb coat. I just put it on thick and it does a pretty good job without a crumb coat. If you need to, add the rest of your frosting on top and spread it out. And if you're doing a cake with more layers, like a 3 or 4 layer cake, you might want to do 1.5 times the batch of frosting, just to make sure you've got plenty of frosting for your cake, because you don't want to run out of frosting. Okay, and then the last thing I like to do is I like to take my scraps that I pulled off of the cake when I leveled it, and I'm just going to break them up into crumbs, and then we're going to use them to decorate the top of the red velvet cake. I love the look. It kind of gives a hint at what's inside. You could also just serve it plain like this, or use sprinkles if you'd rather have sprinkles on top. But this is kind of a fun, like easy decorating idea that doesn't take any special skill or talent to achieve. Okay, so I'm going to take my crumbs and I'm just going to kind of sprinkle them around the edges of the top of the cake. I mean, you could also use mini chocolate chips. Red velvet isn't a chocolatey cake, but if people want to like amp up the chocolate aspect of it, mini chocolate chips are another really fun way to decorate a red velvet cake. Another really good thing is I love red velvet with Oreos. So you could totally use like an Oreo frosting and decorate the top with crushed Oreos. It's a really good flavor that goes with a lot of different things. Okay, so I'm just gonna clean up the edges and that's it, we're done. We've made our red velvet cake. Okay, because this is a cream cheese frosting, you can actually leave it out at room temperature if your house isn't too warm for about a day. The powdered sugar is going to help preserve the cream cheese that's in the frosting. But if it's going to be longer than that, or if it's warm at all, I would stick it in the refrigerator. It'll stay nice and fresh in the fridge for like 4 to 5 days. Just pull it out and bring it up to room temperature before serving. You can also freeze the cake just like this. So I would freeze it solid first to set the frosting, and then wrap it well in plastic wrap. And then when you're ready to eat it, just pull it out and let it thaw at room temperature. But now it's time to slice the cake. I'm so shaky. Ah. Okay, so now I get to have a taste of this. So I'm gonna make sure I get some of that cream cheese frosting with the red velvet cake. Okay, this is such a delicious cake. So much better than any red velvet cake mix. Honestly, this would make a believer of even people who don't think they love red velvet cake. It's got light cocoa and buttery tones to it with that tangy cream cheese frosting. It's delicious. I hope you guys love this red velvet cake. It's so much better than any cake mix you buy at the store. If you like it, be sure to like and subscribe to my channel for more great recipes just like this, and let me know in the comments below what cake flavor you'd like to see me make next.